Hello. Sorry for the delay, but anyway, let's start with an interesting topic. I decided to tell you more about the battery and what can you do to prolong the life of your battery of your e-bike. Well, first of all, it's important to understand that there are a couple of factors that play a role here, and you cannot only look and think about one. You need to take them in in attention altogether. So the first one is battery charge and discharge speed. And what I mean here is if you push your battery to the limit by charging it and discharging it on a high power level, you slowly killing it capacity. Of course, we cannot influence too much the discharge speed because that's something we need, and that's something why we buy high power batteries, right? So nobody interested to buy a high power battery and then use it on low power parameters. So it's not that interesting to discuss for us because we cannot influence it too much. And another thing is charge speed. This is something you can improve, and if you buy our charger, at maximum power output they provide about 12 amps. And if you think about the batteries that you have with your Typhoon or Vortex, the big capacity battery, they all above 40 amp hours. So 12 amps is not that much. But even though, if you have plenty of time, you have 5, 6, 7 hours, you can charge your battery with maybe 10, 9, 8 amps. It's not necessary to use a maximum power of your charger. It's better to use lower power charger when you can afford it, and when you really need to charge your bike fast, then you can use 12 amps or even connect two chargers in parallel and charge it with 24 amps power. That's another story. So we talked about charging and discharging. Another topic is temperature. So if you've been riding your bike on a hot summer day on a high power, of course your battery can reach 50, 60 degree. It won't reach higher because the BMS will cut the power to protect the battery. But if you finish your ride and your battery is hot, like 60 degree, it's not the best idea to start charging it right now, immediately, yeah? So what I would do, I would let it cool down to the room temperature or ambient temperature and charge it only after this. And the same situation in the winter. If you want to charge your battery, you won't be able to do it if the temperature below zero, because the BMS have built-in temperature sensor and we program it this way. But even if you have an option to charge it when it's 0 degree, or if you start riding, let's say even in the minus, and then after your ride your battery already warm because of internal resistance, then maybe it's good idea to charge your battery in winter if it's cold immediately after your ride. This way your battery can be 10, 20 degree. It's much better than charge it in 0, right? So that's what you can do about temperature. Also, if you ride in the summer and it's hot summer day, you can open partly side panels, or you can order the side panels with the ventilation, so you can have airflow. Oh, we've got the first messages here. Thank you. I will answer your questions just in a minute. So that's about the temperature. Another factor is if you charge or discharge your battery to some certain level. So if you have your battery with 100% capacity, of course you can always discharge it to 0 and charge it to 100%. But with a lithium battery, it doesn't work this way. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you're slowly killing its capacity. So long life will be shorter. The best way what you can do is what I recommend. I recommend to charge it to full or almost to full, and I will explain why. But discharge it to, let's say, 40, 30, 20%, depending how much kilometers or range you need. Why I'm telling you to charge to full? Some people tell me it's not good to charge battery to full. Yes, correct, but you never know how far you want to go during your ride. And when I tell to charge your battery to full, it doesn't mean to charge your battery to 100% and leave it in your garage for a week, 2 or 3 or months or even more. Of course, don't do it. But before you want start your ride, you can tap your battery to 100% and then start riding. I think it's better to fill it to 100% and then discharge it to 40 or 30 rather than charge it to 90 or 80 and then discharge it to 10 or complete 0. Do you understand what I mean? So here, of course, in ideal situation, you would charge it to, let's say, 70, 80 and discharge it to 40, 30%. In voltage term, if we talk about 72 volt battery, it means in ideal situation, you charge it, let's say, to 80 and discharge it to 70, 68. But I recommend to charge it to full, so almost to 84%, which is 100%, and then discharge it to, let's say, 70. Another reason why I'm telling you, why I recommend you to do it like this, is that when you ride your bike with a high power, you draw a lot of current out of battery when you give a full gas. But if you have 100% battery state of charge and you use 100% power, your battery voltage will drop, but it will not reach the critical limit. And the opposite, if you have a low state of charge, let's say 20%, and you will use a full throttle, you may not even be able to use the full throttle because the voltage sag, the voltage will drop under the load and it can drop below critical level. So your controller, in theory, should cut the power even before the BMS will do it. So this is another reason why I recommend to charge before your ride. I repeat, before your ride to 100%, and then stop your ride sooner. Or if you want, of course, you can continue and discharge it to 0, but I think it's better than not charge it to 100% and then come back almost with 0. What else? We talked about charging speed, discharging, the temperature, the state of charge. Let's talk about the storage. If you know that you want, if you want a ride for months, let's say, you travel somewhere, or it's just bad weather and you don't want to ride when it's cold outside, so you need to keep your battery without usage for a long time, the optimal voltage or state of charge will be about 60-50%. So again, if we talk about the voltage, it will be about, let's say, 70-72 volts for battery. I recommend to leave the voltage a bit higher, let's say 75 or 77, which is a bit on the upper end. Why? Because in your battery, it's not like separate disconnected cells. You still have BMS, battery management system device, connected. Hello everybody. Battery management system connected to the battery cells, and it slowly consumes some current, very little, but still it consumes power by maintaining your battery status. And if you're gonna leave your battery for months, the BMS will consume a little bit of power, and that's why I recommend to leave it somewhere on the 65 or 77 voltage, 77 volts. Then you have some spare buffer for the BMS to draw energy out of battery before it will reach the critical level. Yes, what else can you do? If you have access to your battery, to your bike, I would still recommend once a month or even sooner to check your battery level, because sometimes you may forget that you left the lights on, or you forget to turn off your controller or something, and in 1 week if you left your bike with 77 volts, nothing gonna happen. But if you left your bike with 77 volts for months and you forgot to turn off the bike or something like this, it can draw more energy from your batteries, and then it would be acceptable. And the BMS eventually will cut the power, but then the battery will be completely discharged, which is not good. So if you have possibility, charge your battery for 77 volt and leave it like this, and check it once in 1, 2, or 3 weeks, and then everything should be fine with your battery. We have clients who use their batteries for 5 years. Of course, not every day, but still, you know, they ride pretty often. They change some other parts already on the bike, but they still keep running on original battery. Some of the clients change the BMSs for different reasons, but still use the original battery cells. And this is another reason why we received the message how cold. So basically, at what temperature can you use your battery? The BMS programmed to open the discharge protocol if the temperature didn't reach, I don't remember, 15 or 20 degree minus Celsius. But believe me, if it's going to be minus 20 outside, you probably won't go outside and ride your bike. First of all, it's not going to be good for your battery. You will have very high voltage sag. But then again, if it's minus 20, imagine how much you need to put the protection over your body to not get frostbite, right? So I think it's safe to say that the bike battery won't be the limit for the temperature when you can go ride or when you cannot go ride. Me personally, I took a bike for a ride in the winter to the mountains in the Alps, and the temperature there was, I guess, sometimes minus 10, minus 15. But since I was riding not with a high speed, it was more like, you know, technical terrains. The speed was not very high, and it was more or less comfortable to ride. But if I would ride with this temperature on a high speed, I think it won't be too pleasant actually. So I think, again, it's not the limiting factor, the battery. About charging, I already said, it's another story. You can, if you missed this part, you can watch this this video later, and you can listen what I explained about the charging battery in cold. So yeah, pretty much that's all, and that's why I'm saying to everybody it doesn't make sense to wait half year or two for better cell technologies, because they always evolve, and I'm sure each year we will have better and better battery technologies. So if you want to buy a bike and you want to go ride and have fun and enjoy it, and have good time, just go for it, buy it and use it, because the batteries that you can buy now, they are good enough already uh, for great riding. Of course the battery will be better with time, so maybe in 5 years you will be able to buy the battery with the same capacity but 2 times smaller in volume and weight, but you won't be able to ride your bike for 5 years if you're gonna wait this time. So and again, if you're gonna ride for 5 years and then you calculate the price of the battery you pay now, it's not that much, right? So if you think about riding gasoline motorcycle, you will spend much more for gasoline, oil, filters, and so on, comparing to price of the battery. If you calculate how many kilometers can you cover until your battery will lose 20 or 25% of its initial capacity, you will see that riding the bike is almost for free. So it seems like the battery is expensive part, and it is, but if you think on distance, how many kilometers you can cover with your battery before it loses its initial capacity, it's became obvious that it's almost for free. And yeah, you can compare it with other sports as well. In any sports you have something that you need to invest money, some equipment or service or something. The same here, battery is pretty much one of the point of the e-bike that you use and spend, and with the time of course it will go degraded. Even if you don't use the battery at all, if you leave it for perfect voltage and leave it for 5 years, the battery will lose its capacity anyway. So if you buy it, go ride it. Another question that I often get from my clients: is it safe to buy a used battery? Yes and no. And it is safe to buy a used battery if you know how you can check it and how you can test it. The three things you need to look at your battery: you will never know how many cycles it did, because you cannot be sure that the seller will tell you the true information about it. He can tell you 20 cycles although the battery had 200 cycles. You cannot check it. So 3 factors that you need to look at the used battery when you buy it. First is any physical damages on the battery. If you see that some cells or connections are somehow damaged or compromised, or you have signs of corrosion or something, it's not a good idea to buy this battery, because it's already shows that it was used for a long time and not in a good condition. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if you can check the total capacity of your battery, you can compare how much capacity it should have had when it was new, let's say 30 amp hours, and then you do the test from 100% to complete zero, and you can see that it output only, let's say, 25 amp hours. So it loses 5 amp hours. If you divide it to 30, then it's 1/6. So you can understand that this battery is definitely not 20 or 30 cycles. It's already maybe 100 or more, right? And the third thing you need to look at the used battery is the voltage sag, because with the time and with abuse of battery, the internal resistance of the cells is going up. And if the new battery, let's say under load of, let's say 50 amps, will have 5-volt sag, for example, don't take it too serious about the numbers, just for your understanding. If you're gonna buy a used battery and you see that this battery has 10 or 15-volt sag under 50 amps, you know, that's sign that the internal resistance is way higher than it was when it was new. Here again, why I said you don't need to look at the numbers that I said exactly, because sorry, every battery are different, and some battery may not even be designed for 50 amps. So you always need to look at the battery for how many amp it can be discharged, and so on. So if you understand those three parameters, the physical damages and corrosion, then the capacity, which is remaining capacity it has, and internal resistance of the cells. If you think about those three factors and they are more or less good, then I say yes, it's safe to go and buy this battery. But if you don't know how to check it, and the only source of information you have is a seller, I would say no, it's not safe to buy this battery, because you're buying cat in a bag. So that was a topic about the batteries. You can ask me your questions now in chat and I will answer them. We had a question about if we sell the bikes or components in US. Hello. Yes, we sell the bikes and components to US, Canada, Australia, Korea, South America. We send the bike to almost all continents except Antarctica. Although it would be nice. I think we have some clients who bought it for Norway or for Finland, and they live outside of the North Circle. So yeah, we have our bikes even in a North Circle territory. What is my opinion about Lipo batteries? Lipo batteries are cool in terms of how much power they can provide. So let's say if we think about lithium-ion batteries, they can provide from 1C to, let's say, 5C. Some cells can provide up to 10C, but it's very extreme cases. Lipo batteries can provide from 1C to 50C, yeah, when it's burst power, or even higher. But there is something which everybody who use them prefer to not talk about, and this is safety. Yes, you can tell me, yeah, if you maintain Lipo batteries well and they are protected from physical damage, then it's safe to use them. True, but how can you be sure about physical protection of the batteries? Because you keep them inside the frame, and what if you're gonna fall down with the bike? They're not gonna be damaged or squinched or something like this. You never know. If you put them inside the metal case and the batteries start puffing, yeah, the limit of space will lead to it can lead to explosion of the battery. And lithium polymer batteries are not the same as lithium-ion batteries. They burn very fast and very hard and very great. So if you want to have a good firework on July 4th, you can buy Lipo batteries. No, I mean, of course, it's again depend on your level, how experienced you are with the batteries. If you have years and years and tens or hundreds of cells batteries that you used before, it's one thing. But if you are someone who just bought the frame and think, okay, I can save money and buy, let's say, some cheaper Lipo batteries, and you don't understand very well what you're doing, I would not recommend to do this. Just give me a second, I will turn on light here because it's became dark. Just a second. Okay, guys, I'm back. So, yeah, as I said about Lipo batteries, they are safe if you know what you do, which basically you can tell about anything, right? But if we talk about Lipo batteries, uh, even if you overcharge them or over discharge them or abuse them in terms of discharge rating, they are much safer than Lipo batteries. But of course, if you use high quality cells, if you buy no name brand or not tested cells or cells from recycled laptop batteries and you build a battery for bike, it's there is no any difference between this and any other dangerous cells. It doesn't matter what chemistry are they. So yeah, if you want to buy something already produced and be safe with it, here, Robert, hello. We have a message from Robert. He said, just a second, that he burned his garage with Lipo batteries. I heard many stories like this, and this is one of the reasons why we don't work with Lipo batteries. And in our workplace, when we produce batteries from lithium-ion, we use very high safety measures before we even start working with the cells. We test each individual cell for internal resistance, voltage, and any physical damage. If one of those parameters are not in the scope where it should be, we put the cell aside. We never build the batteries if we see some cells are not corresponding to those limits, because again, it may not be obvious from start, or you may not have any problem from the beginning, or maybe even first months or a couple of months, but then you will see one cell group is constantly higher or lower with the voltage than other cells, or maybe even your all cells group will be higher and lower, which is also possible. And this is one of the signs that cells that you're using were not good quality or were used or something like this, but it should not be like this. With the batteries that we build, and Robert knows this, it's almost, and I say almost because it's not 100% like this, but it's almost safe to use battery without BMS. Why? Because if your battery is new and it was built in the proper way and it was built with good quality cells, the chance that the cells group will be in disbalance, and then by charging or discharging battery, some cell group one or couple cell group will be above the normal operating range are very, very low. We have clients who used their bikes without BMS just connected voltmeter. They made a port from the battery and they connected to the voltmeters that can monitor couple cells at the same time. So they saw always the voltage of the cells, but they didn't have the BMS connected, pretty much. And they were using their bikes for years, 2-3 years, and the difference between the cells were in the range of 300-400 of the volts, which means that BMS in our bikes, when you build them with a good quality batteries, are more or less for monitoring and performing some safety measures, just in case when you over discharge battery or overcharge battery, they will stop the process and disconnect your battery cells from the rest of electronical components of your bike. So this is the reason why you still need the BMS. But not all batteries are the same, and some batteries may be built with not well tested or low quality cells, and then BMS need constantly to balance the cells to keep them more or less on the same level. And then when you charge the complete battery, so-called bulk charging, more or less all the cells will be in the same group. Yeah. Send me your questions if you have. I will answer to the rest of the questions that you guys send us. Meanwhile, I want to tell you that we plan to have, I think I told about this previous time, we want to have some batteries with lower capacity cells, but they are with a much lower price. So for those that is not that important, the huge capacity of the battery, and let's say the range of your ride mostly between, let's say, 30 and 50 kilometers or 20-30 miles per ride, this battery will be more than enough. But like in everything else, the highest price you pay in any technology or product, you pay for something that is not too far away from some average quality or capacity or performance product. And when you want to have the battery which are same weight, let's say, but has a best capacity, that's when you might need to pay 2 times or 3 times two times or 3 times the normal price of the battery. I think the same can be affected to, let's say, solar panels, right? If you want to have a solar panels on your roof or trailer or anywhere with the best efficiency, then you need to pay sometimes 2 times more than the panels with 2-3-4% lower capacity. But if you are not limited in space, it's much better financially to buy 2 times more solar cells with 2-3% less efficient parameters, but at the end you will get much more energy out of sun, right? For this money. And the same with the batteries here. If you don't want to have the biggest capacity with this amount of cells, you can save money. And again, in 3, 4, 5 years, if you pay, let's say, 700 for the batteries, it's not that bad if you can afford to change your batteries and you pay just 700 for the battery instead of paying 1,500 for the battery or even more, right? So we will see if this will be possible. I will talk about this in the next Q&A again. What current you recommend charging battery? I already explained this question at the beginning of this video, so when we finish you will be able to check it from the beginning, and you can scroll to any point where you want, and I explained very in the details. I saw somebody said in chat that he pulled with the bike the motorcycle or something like this. Yeah, we did it with we pulled with the bikes, and it was, I don't remember which one, the Typhoon or Vortex, but both of them are capable of this. You can pull a car, and when we were pulling a van, that the people were very surprised to see something that small without any noise, and pulling the car behind. It was just for fun. We there was no reason or necessity to do this, but that's something your bike can do. It has a crazy amount of torque. Yeah, you can ask me other questions. I think I had some interesting questions today or yesterday before, but it was in our website chat, and I decided to answer those questions, and now I cannot remember them. Which questions that was. Yeah. The question, do I need to send my Typhoon back when I want to change the battery? Absolutely not necessary. So if you buy a bike, for example, now, and you get the new battery, you can charge it. Charge it. You can use it for years, 1, 2, 3 years, as long as you want. When you'll see that the capacity drop down to the level when you want to upgrade the battery, or simply the new battery with much better capacity is available and you want it, what you can do, you can use your old BMS. You can even send it to us. That's the first option. You can use your old BMS to the new battery, and then you would pay just for the battery with the cells. The second option, you can sell your old battery together with the BMS to somebody who don't need that big capacity and can still use for hundreds of cycles your battery, just for a smaller cost, and then you add some money and buy a new battery, right? That's the second option. And the third option is, if you see after many cycles, you will see that one cell group is lower than the other. It is also possible to replace just 1 or 2 or 3 cell group, and then continue using the rest of the cells. But I'm not big fan of it. It's only valid for the situations when the difference is obvious, is too big. But if you see that the capacity of all the cells are more or less good question about the shock. I will explain it in a second. So I think the best solution will be to keep using the battery case and the BMS from your old battery with the new cells. This way you would need just to pay for the cells. And the old cells, you have a couple options. You can sell them. There are many people who use those cells for the home batteries. Yes. Let's see, the bike has now almost 4 kilowatt-hour battery, and some power walls, like Tesla power walls, I think it can be 10 kilowatt-hours or 15. I don't remember for sure, but let's say if it's 10 kilowatt-hours. Hello, Manati. If it's a 10 kilowatt-hour battery for the whole home, and your battery when it was new in your bike was 4 kilowatt-hours, and now let's say it's 3 or 2.5, it's still decent amount of power. You can run your computer for many hours from this battery. So there are plenty of things you can use your old battery, which is maybe not good enough already for the bike, but it's not complete zero. So yeah, which is good. And with the cars, with electric cars, it's the same. You use it inside the car, this battery, and after this, when you want to replace it, most likely your car will be already outdated. But if you want to replace your battery, the old battery can work in as a home energy storage, right? Next question was about suspension. How often do you need to clean your suspension? And it's a good question because I ride my test bikes in very harsh conditions through the dirt, mud, sand, clay, and my bike, as well as a fork, is getting dirty almost after every ride. So what I do, I take care on the suspension, the open section where they compressed, right? After every ride, I clean it first with the water. Then you clean it with a soft material. Don't try to scratch it or rub it with something, you know. Don't clean it with any chemicals or anything, just a water. And after this, I apply the silicone oil. You can buy it for $5-10 per can of, with compressed air in form of spray, and it's perfect. Just buy a silicone oil to apply on fork legs and on the rear suspension. Okay, good question. I'll answer it as well. And after you apply the silicone oil for those section parts, again, just compress the fork a couple of times, that this oil lubricated all the moving parts, and clean the rest. Make sure this oil don't get on the brake pads or brake rotor, because it will kill the brake pads and then you would need to replace them. And if you're gonna do it after every ride in a muddy terrain, it's not necessary if you go to ride on asphalt or dry weather, but if you ride it and you see your bike is dusty or dirt, and you're gonna clean it like this and lubricate it with a silicone oil, you may not need to do the service for a year or two. But very little people doing it. So if you don't do it, yeah, be ready to change some internal components in your fork or shock. And yeah, it's like cleaning your teeth, right? You can clean them every day, twice a day, or you can not clean them at all. But another question was, can we update our parts list on a website and remove those parts that are not available for sale right now? Yes, we can, and I will probably do it. I will just put them out of stock. I don't want to remove them from the website, that people won't be able to see them at all. But why the situation is like this? We may have many parts in stock, but we won't sell them as a separate component, only if the person buy a complete bike or almost complete bike by parts. Why? Because now there are huge waiting lines from the manufacturers for many components. It's tires, brakes, suspension, you name it. And if we don't have them huge amount in stock in our warehouse, we are not sure when we will receive the next batch. And we don't want to be in the situation when we sell now those components as a components, and let's say in 4, 5, 6 months we won't have those components to finish the bikes. And this is the reason why we may have those components in stock, but we won't be able to sell them now separately to the people who see them on our website. But you're right, I should probably put it out of stock. And some manufacturers give me one estimated time for the next order to be ready, but then in 3, 4, 5 months in a production waiting line, they contact me and say, listen, Arthur, we received the new batch of raw material for this product, and we may be able to finish it 3, 4, 5 months earlier than we told you at the beginning, right? So you never know how it's going to develop. Or opposite way, we order 100 motors for the bikes, and 100 motors, it's a pretty big order. It's like how much? Over 1.5 tons of motors, and they stuck in a Chinese port because of the COVID checks. Then they stuck because of the weather, and then they stuck because of some container shortages. And we were waiting, after they were already produced, we were waiting 1.5 months just before they were shipped. So in some situations we are forced to say no, although I would be super glad to provide all of you guys with the components to finish your bikes. But in some situations we really need to say no, just to not be in a situation when we're out of stock and we cannot finish the bikes for you. So this is the reason why it is like this, but I will take time and change the website information. Did we have any other questions in the chat? And do you have any other interesting questions? Let me see. I will scroll it. The question is, do we switch to the will there be a new model someday? Yeah, we are working constantly on the new models, and not one. It's just very long process. We are not team of engineers like 500 people in a company, so we have limited number of people working on the modeling, designing, computer testing, and then producing the prototype, assembling the prototype, testing the prototype. And this equation need to repeat like 5-6 times, almost the whole process, before we get the working prototype. And after you get the working prototype, you need to find a reliable source of material for manufacturing, to build up the manufacturing facilities for the batch, not for 1 or 2 pieces. And it all takes very long time. So we constantly work on some new models, not even one. But right now, the models that we have are the models that we can sell you relatively in a short period, because the manufacturing is already easy for us. But we work on the new models, and they will be made out of aluminum. It will be interesting technical solutions in the new frame, because as you understand, we always want to make something better. Yes, in electric bike which weight 40 or 50 kilo, the weight difference is not that big if we talk about steel or aluminum. But if we talk about the bike that cost $7,000 or $8,000, I think then maybe it makes sense to spend extra 400-500 to get the product made out of aluminum. Aluminum, it has its own pluses and own minuses. If we talk about steel, steel is much, it has much more plastic deformation comparing to aluminum, which means in steel you may fall down, you may hit something with your frame, and it will not develop cracks. It most likely will have first the plastic deformation, and you will have time to inspect it, to inspect this damage and to take some measures, or to repair the frame, or to change this part of the frame, or to change the frame completely. With aluminum, it's much more brittle material, like a carbon as well. So it may look like new, and at the same time it may develop some micro cracks, especially carbon. And then when you hit some big obstacle or pothole or something, it will just crack in two pieces. And this can be dangerous if you're riding 60 or 70 kilometers per hour. So this is why in ideal conditions you can save huge amount of weight by switching from steel to aluminum, but because you want to avoid this situation with which has aluminum with micro cracks, you still need to make this frame much stronger than it's needed. And by doing this, of course, you kill your weight saving a little bit. But new bike and new frame will be made out of aluminum. Overall, for the whole bike, it won't be too much weight difference, but still maybe 5-6 kilo difference on a whole bike it will give us. And yes, we have a working prototype now. We still want to change some geometry parameters for the frame, and let's see, maybe for the next season we will have some small batch of the first bikes. We will try. Let me know if you have any other questions. We talked already almost 1 hour. It's 52 minutes we are live, and today was a very, I think, interesting information for those who want to know more about the batteries and maintaining the life of the battery. So if you didn't hear all of the Q&A session for today, after we finish, you will be able just to open them and watch it from the beginning. Maybe not immediately. I don't 100% sure about YouTube way of doing it, but next day for sure. Yeah, I'm sitting now on the balcony, and it's good weather. Tomorrow gonna be even warmer, and hopefully I charge my bikes, both Typhoon and Vortex. And yeah, I'm planning to go tomorrow to the mountains to have a great time and ride. If it's gonna be a great weather, I may take some pictures for the Instagram or something. So if you're interested, just check our social media. Tomorrow I will share with you. And for those of you who are owners of our bikes or parts, feel free to send us to email or WhatsApp or Instagram. You can send us in a private message or in the Facebook your media materials, videos or pictures from your rides or places where you ride. I will be glad to see them and post them to share with other Vector e-bike users. So yeah, I see we don't have too many questions now. Again, we'll try to keep this format of weekly Q&A once a week on Friday, 8 p.m. Central European Time. I think this should be more or less possible for many people who are interested. And if we will maintain the same time schedule, I think more and more people will join every time. So thank you for your attention, guys. Thank you for your activity and questions. I will see you next week. Write down your questions for the next Q&A session. We will definitely answer all of them for the next time. And so far I say thank you for all of you who was here with me. And see you next time. Bye bye, guys.